From the Times and the Sunday Times, this is The Story. I'm Manveen Rana. It's 10 p.m. in London, 5 p.m. on the east coast of America. People are still voting, and our intrepid producer, Chris Wade, is at a viewing party in central London.
It's already pretty lively, as you can probably hear. There's a big screen up in the corner showing a map of the US with all the swing states marked out. And there are lots of Americans sat around here, sat around tables, talking to each other, having a beer.
I think I speak for both sides of the aisle that there's an excitement, but there is a nervous excitement.
I'm potentially optimistic about, restoring our process of democracy in the United States.
My party decided Trump, so I support my party. And if my party supports Trump, then I have no other choice than to support Donald Trump.
Hopefully we'll see Kamala Harris in power.
I do fear for what type of retaliation might be if she does win by such a small amount of votes.
This is a historic election. America is deciding between two very different visions of its future.
We're going to turn it around, and it's going to happen fast. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here.
We have an opportunity in this election to turn the page on a decade of Donald Trump trying to keep us divided and afraid of each other.
We will get critical race theory and transgender insanity the hell out of our schools and fair.
We are the promise of America in the women who refuse to accept a future without reproductive freedom.
We will restore America's promise, and we will take back the nation that we all love.
Today, I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard?
We will fight, and win. We're going to win.
And when we fight, we win. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Into the battlegrounds, outside the polling stations, the highs, the lows, the rage, the jubilation. This is how some of the most important hours in American history unfolded. The story today, the night of the American election. Would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us what time it is where you are?
Yeah, my name is Tom Newton-Dunn, and I'm covering the US election for The Times. It's currently 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, so that's 12:15 a.m. in London.
Tom, you're in North Carolina. Just describe where you are. We can hear quite a lot in the background. What's happening? What can you see?
Yeah, it's a tad noisy here. I'm actually at the Marriott City Center Hotel in Raleigh, which is the capital of North Carolina, at the Democrats' official watch party. So it's a statewide watch party. They're getting pretty chatty, and they're already tucking into the beer.
And Tom, North Carolina is vital in this election. Just going back to basics, we're all talking about 270, the number 270. That's how many electoral college votes either candidate would need to win. And because of that, and because of how divided most of the country is, we think it's going to come down to these 7 key swing states. Just run us through them again. Which states will end up determining who becomes president?
Sure, it's a long evening of maths, basically. It always is with US elections. So 43 states of the US, 50, they can pretty much already bank. There might be some surprises, which we're going to be particularly interested in, of course, but that leaves 7, which are too close to call. Each candidate, Trump or Harris, needs to win 3 or 4 of them, depending which ones they are, to get them over that 270 line. So they close over the next few hours now, really. Georgia's just closed about 20 or so minutes ago. We won't get a result for a little while yet. North Carolina, where I am, closes at 7:30. Pennsylvania at 8 o'clock, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona at 9, and then Nevada at 10 p.m. So it's a long, slow drift, really, and tension builds.
And all eyes are on North Carolina and Georgia because they will be the first indicators, really, of who might be winning.
Yeah, they might well be, or we might not get them at all. I have to tell you, this election is the strangest I think I've ever covered in Britain or America, in that we just simply have no idea what's going to happen and when. It is the most mysterious thing. So what happens in American elections is that you can wait for the official results, but what normally happens is the TV networks and the Associated Press make calls. They do their very clever calculations and they say, well, we can say that X or Y has won that state. But here's the thing, the closer the races are, the longer we're going to have to wait, because the tighter the margin of victory is, and therefore the more nervous those networks are going to be calling it. So we could have something by midnight US time on the East Coast, or it could go on for days and potentially weeks. We just don't know.
You've been in North Carolina for a few days. I mean, what's the vibe? Which way do you think it's going? What are people saying to you?
It's absolutely fascinating. I sum up the general mood here over the last couple of days as a mix between excitement and nerves. It's been a really beautiful day here. For one thing, it's been hot sunshine, 26 degrees centigrade, I guess the perfect weather for voting, really. And what we do know for sure is there's been a huge turnout, both in early voting in the state. A record 4.4 million people voted here out of an eligible total of 9 million or so. That's a record for North Carolina, the biggest in the US. Some 57% have already voted. And also a huge amount of number at the various polling precincts today. So I was at one, Wake County's Precinct 7 at 6:30 a.m., the early bird to try and catch the first voter in any of the swing states, because North Carolina, I get a gold star for that. You're number one, the very first.
Yes, I am.
So North Carolina opened at 6:30 in the morning rather than 7 like the rest of the East Coast. Savannah Ransom, the very first person who voted there, she was waiting in line actually on her own from 5:30 in the morning, a whole hour early. Is this an important day, an important election for you?
It is, yeah.
Why is that?
I'm hoping there will be the first female president of the United States.
So, dare I ask you how you voted then? If that's not very obvious.
I voted blue today, yeah. I voted for Kamala Harris.
And you see that excitement everywhere across both camps. I spent this afternoon going around polling places in Nash County, just east of Raleigh, and that's where the tightest race is. It's also a real bellwether county. It always goes with whoever wins the presidency. And you talk to Trump supporters, you talk to Harris supporters, and the extraordinary thing is both sides are supremely confident of victory.
We've had a lot of dedicated volunteers and people out knocking doors, and a lot of campaign events been going on, and the energy is incredible for Trump.
The reality is we know that Kamala's winning. We know that she's winning, and the reason we know it because we can feel it. I can even smell it. It smells like victory. It's in the air.
Let's go.
So all we can say at this point, Bambin, is someone, half the state even, is going to be fairly disappointed come sometime in the wee hours or in the days ahead.
Yeah. And that is a really key thing. We don't know what'll happen when a result is finally announced. As you said, the polls across the country haven't even closed yet. We've already seen quite a lot of drama. Just remind us of what's been happening today.
Yeah, it's been the sort of day I think we probably expected. Not at all a usual polling day in America. There was a bomb hoax in Georgia, which it was later identified to have come from Russia, calling that one in. There's a man arrested in Wisconsin. He said he'd stolen an AR-15 assault rifle and was ready to shoot a Republican if Trump wins tonight. Trump himself has already alleged cheating. He got onto Truth Social, which is his chosen social media account, to tweet out that there had been massive cheating in Philadelphia. And I suspect he was probably watching the TV pictures at the time, around about 5 p.m. of those very long queues building up in Philadelphia. It's a very strong Democrat area, and was getting quite worried about it. He had no evidence of this massive cheating at all. And Mandy, I think that's the really big question of tonight. If Trump loses, and he may very well not, but even if there's no result at all, he's very likely to declare victory early on, possibly before midnight or in the early hours of the morning, as he did in 2020, and that sets up a really dangerous expectation potentially with his supporters.
Tom, thanks very much for that. We'll catch up with you later in the evening, perhaps.
Look forward to it. It's going to be a long night.
Here's the map now to 270 as we add that to the group. And Donald Trump out with 191 now to Harris's 81.
You mentioned we have 6 of 7 presidential battlegrounds to get to. Nevada will close here at the top of the hour. But let's look at Michigan. Too close to call right now, just 15% in. We could be up all night and perhaps beyond. Michigan didn't get called till late the next day in 2020. Pennsylvania, need I remind you, we were here till Saturday waiting for its results. But at this hour, it's much too close to call.
So my name's Louise Callaghan. I'm the US correspondent for the Sunday Times, and it's now 10 p.m. in Palm Beach, Florida.
It's just past 3 a.m. here. Louise, where exactly are you tonight? And just describe the scene around you.
So I'm at the West Palm Beach Convention Center, which is where the Republicans are holding their big watch party. Trump's supposed to be turning up here a bit later on in a few hours. He's currently at Mar-a-Lago. And so it's all these people. I mean, I don't know how many people there are here. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands. And lots of people have come here to try and, to celebrate Trump and celebrate the Republicans. People dressed up. There's a lot of red MAGA hats. There's a lot of red, white, and blue sequins. A whole lot of sparkle. And yeah, there's people are kind of excited to come and celebrate him. It's the real kind of hardcore that are here. His supporters, kind of friends and acquaintances that have all come together here.
Apparently it's ball gowns and tuxedos at Mar-a-Lago. They've already spotted Elon Musk, RFK Jr., Nigel Farage, and Caitlyn Jenner arriving. So there's clearly a grand party there. I'm hoping you're going to join them at some point. Are you wearing a ball gown?
No, I left my ball gown at home, unfortunately. but yeah, I spent much of the day trying to get into Mar-a-Lago. Quite unsuccessful, along with quite a large number of the members. So people pay upwards of $1 million every year to be a member at Mar-a-Lago, and a bunch of the members couldn't get in tonight.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really packed. There's about 700 guests there apparently, and competition for spaces is pretty hot.
And Louise, where you are, surrounded by real MAGA heartland fans of Donald Trump, what have you been hearing from people? What are they saying to you?
So what I'm hearing here is these people live within Donald Trump's information universe, right? So a guy really seriously just told me that if this was a fair election, then Donald Trump would win every single one of the 50 states.
I think that the vote for Trump is overwhelming, that any cheating that they're going to do, the vote through is going to overwhelm it. So it's going to be a tight race, but I think we're going to come ahead.
Do you think there's any way that Harris can win?
Only by cheating.
So this is the way in which the people here have structured their reality is that they believe that Donald Trump should, is America's leader.
So I've traveled most of the country. Everywhere I go, even in supposed blue areas, they're not very blue. So we've talked to people everywhere, and it's overwhelming support for President Trump.
And do you think there's any chance he could lose?
So I don't feel like legitimately there's a chance he could lose, but after what happened in 2020, I think there's always a chance with cheating and whatever is going to happen, there's always that chance.
They believe that he won the last election. They believe he'll win this one, and there's no idea in their minds that this might not happen. I spoke to a senior campaign official who has a different view, but he said that he's feeling, he's quite realistic about the whole thing. He said he's feeling cautiously optimistic. What the campaign are looking at, which they're happy about, is that they were worried that having encouraged early voting among Republicans would have cannibalized their turnout on the day, but they're saying that no, the numbers are quite high. They're saying that from exit polls, it shows that turnout among young black men was good for the Republicans. So that's the kind of things they're clinging on to now. But to be honest, at the moment, we just don't know. A lot's going to become clear throughout the night, particularly when Georgia and North Carolina are called. At the moment, it's not looking great for Harris in Georgia. I think her campaign would definitely be hoping that her numbers were better than they are at the moment, with I think it's about 75% of the votes counted. But yeah, we'll see very soon.
And Louise, we don't have many meaningful results yet, but Florida seems to be a big win for Donald Trump, bigger than last time. How is that going down?
Yeah, so Florida's been turning redder for some time, and it's a kind of ongoing trend that we've seen. But yeah, absolutely, this does seem like it was a great result for the Republicans this time around. They won a county which they haven't won for a very long time, and there was a really big cheer in the convention center when the results for Florida came up. Of course, we're in Florida as well, so it's a kind of home advantage here. But yeah, it does seem like they've done really well in Florida.
Well, thanks so much for speaking to us, Louise. Good luck with the rest of the night. We'll let you get back to the party.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
As we prepare for the next round of poll closings in about 15 minutes, let's take a look at the fight for electoral votes right now. As of right now, Donald Trump has 207 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 91 electoral votes. There are 270 needed to win.
It's what now, 10 to 11 in the morning. 10 to 11 at night, and we still could be many hours from getting a result.
Well, it's 3:50 here, so it could be worse. It already feels like it's been many hours and no results. Alistair, what's the mood like around you? Just describe the scene.
Well, I'm at the Democratic Watch Party here in Allentown, and you may be able to hear the music in the background. There's a live band, and one or two people are dancing, and the drinks are flowing. But I think underneath the surface, even at this early stage, and it's got to be stressed that it is still very early in the night here, there is a bit of concern. Just before I started speaking to you, I was chatting to one of the officials here, a Democratic Party official, and she wouldn't say, look, it's terrible. She said that Kamala Harris perhaps isn't doing as well in some of these key battleground areas as the votes starting to come in, as perhaps she might need to do to take Pennsylvania.
So a sense of nervousness there.
I think so.
And Pennsylvania is the state that everybody's been waiting with bated breath for. I mean, it could be the one that decides it, depending on how the rest of the night plays out. Just give us a sense of how important it is, but also why it's likely to be the last to be called.
Well, one of the biggest reasons it's important is the 19 electoral college votes. It's a big state, and it's the biggest of the 7 so-called swing states that most people expect are in play tonight. The mail-in ballots, those that are sent through the post before election night, are only counted when the polls close at 8 o'clock. So that's just a few hours ago, and it means that we get millions of votes. It's a state of more than 13 million people, all stacked up to count. And while there are big cities, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, where Kamala Harris needs to win lots and lots of votes, there are some vast, great rural areas as well, where it perhaps takes longer for the votes to be counted. But I think that if we have a result by 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, my time, somewhere near lunchtime, your time, we're doing quite well.
You've been there for a little while. Just give us a sense of what people there have been telling you. What are you hearing? Which way are they going?
Well, it depends where you go. I was in Philadelphia last night for Kamala Harris's big end of campaign rally, and there were tens of thousands of people there. I mean, some of them admitted they were there to see Lady Gaga rather than Kamala Harris, but there were tens of thousands of people there, all very optimistic, all saying that she's the future and it's vital that she wins this election to keep Donald Trump out of office. And earlier today, I was in Northampton County, which borders Allentown, very rural, quite poor, a lot of unemployment and low-income jobs. And there's a feeling among a lot of the people living in Northampton County that actually, you know what, Kamala Harris is responsible for some of their lot. She's been with Joe Biden in office now for 4 years, and it's time to shake things up. And they think that a lot of what Donald Trump has been articulating during the course of this campaign, boosting the economy, sticking tariffs on foreign imports, tax breaks for businesses, are the sorts of things they want to see and will perhaps transform some of these poor areas of the state.
And what about where you are in this Democrat watch party? What have people there been saying to you earlier in the night?
Well, I spoke to one woman and she said she was cautiously optimistic.
I'm confident.
You're confident?
Yes.
What makes you confident? And confident of what? Kamala Harris becoming president?
Yes.
Right? What makes you confident?
Well, if good triumphs evil, then I would say definitely.
Yeah.
But I think she's done the work.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the obvious choice, but obviously not to everyone.
I think that people here have long memories, and in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was about to become the first female president of the United States. She was up at this time of night. It looked clear that she was going to win the election. She ended up losing to Donald Trump. So I think that people have their fingers crossed. There's a lot of hope for Kamala Harris. Still, even though the numbers at the moment don't look entirely favourable, I still think there's a lot of hope for Kamala Harris. But people certainly aren't getting carried away, and they know they've got a long way to go yet.
And it was Pennsylvania that swung it for Joe Biden in the end. Alistair,
That's right.
if this is, so far the theme of the night does seem to be that it's just too close to call, how do you think it might play out over the next day or over the next week?
Well, if it's going to be as close as some of the polls predict, it's likely that the vote, particularly in Pennsylvania, will be very, very close. And I think that means possible recounts in certain counties where the result is extremely close. And we may not get a result by the end of tomorrow, by Thursday. I think if it carries on, I think that we've seen evidence perhaps that parties will claim some sort of foul play. We've had Donald Trump already saying today that there's been voter fraud in Philadelphia. Again, officials there have pushed back and said that there's no evidence whatsoever of voter fraud. But I think we're likely to see the courts get involved. Both parties have an army of lawyers lined up to challenge results they don't like or to try and get recounts in areas of the state that are very, very close. So we could be here for a while.
And Alistair, I know you've been at a Republican watch party too tonight. Just describe the scene there.
Well, it's a bit smaller actually than the Democratic Party, but I think, if anything, the people there are feeling a bit more confident. The alcohol is flowing a bit more freely, and I think people are more prepared to say that they expect Donald Trump to win this election and be back in the White House.
What looks like we have a projected winner. This just came in right now. Okay, North Carolina, Donald Trump is the projected winner. You see the margin there, 136,000. So Donald Trump improved on his margin by back of the envelope math, 50,000 votes there in North Carolina. That's going to be a real disappointment for the Kamala Harris campaign. They had hoped that if North Carolina could be clawed back into the blue column, perhaps that would open up other paths for them out west, a Sunbelt path. It is looking like blue wall or bust. That is.
As the news broke, a ripple of celebration swept across the Trump party at Mar-a-Lago.
CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the state of North Carolina. This is the first of 7 battleground states that we're keeping an eye on, and we are calling it for Donald Trump. What does that mean for the electoral count? Donald Trump now has 200.
It's now 4:30 in the morning here in London in the Times newsroom, which means it's 11:30 at night on the East Coast. The polls are definitely closed, and now we're starting to get results coming in. I'm joined here by our data expert, the data editor of the Times and the Sunday Times, Tom Calver. Welcome, Tom.
Good morning.
Still awake?
Just about.
Talk us through what we know so far.
Well, I mean, remember the lead up to this election, and everyone said, "Oh, it's going to be very, very close." Well, the polls were right in that sense. We still don't have a result. What has been surprising, I think, is how well Trump has done. There was a moment about midnight here, so about sort of 7 in the US, where the first Florida data started to tick in. And it showed Trump doing extraordinarily well in parts of Florida. And now bear in mind, Florida, even sort of 8 years ago was considered a swing state. And yes, it has changed as a state quite drastically in that time. But, Trump only won it by about 3.5 points 4 years ago. This time he won it by 13.5 points.
Wow.
So that's quite a big swing. Now, obviously, Florida wasn't necessarily representative of the whole of the US, but it did indicate that something was going wrong. Now, where are we now? I mean, we're still waiting for a lot of the swing states, although Georgia has just been called for Trump, as has North Carolina.
Two of the swing states that the Democrats would have really needed.
Yeah, so the path to victory for Harris is much, much smaller. So now it's all in the Rust Belt states. She has to win Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And that's not looking particularly hopeful at the moment for her. Obviously, counting is ongoing, and we have to be very careful of what we call mirages, where it looks like one person is ahead, but then they find ballots from another place that leans another way and it shifts it. But at the moment, Harris does trail in all three of those swing states, those swing Rust Belt states. So it's not been a very good night for Harris overall.
And Tom, as you say, a lot of the polls for the last few weeks have been saying it's too close to call. It's been neck and neck. We have had a few suggesting that Harris might win. Where exactly do you think things have gone wrong for her tonight? Who are the Democrat voters who have abandoned her?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think there was that Iowa poll, wasn't there? The one that really sort of almost changed the agenda and almost sort of initiated this vibe change for the sort of positive shift towards Harris in the past few days.
Just remind us about that Iowa poll, because it really did change the news agenda for a bit.
Yeah, so this is a poll by Ann Seltzer, who's a very, very respected pollster in the US, and she has a pretty good track record. And she predicted that Harris was going to win in Iowa. Now, obviously, that would be a huge surprise that the Harris campaign had not sort of made it a target or anything. And it was one of those sort of really shocking moments where I think a lot of pollsters thought, OK, maybe actually we've got this wrong and that actually Harris is going to do much, much better than we've all expected. That hasn't transpired. Like, Trump has won Iowa relatively comfortably. In terms of what actually happened, it's hard to say. I mean, there could be a case of a sort of last-minute rallying of voters.
Is there a chance that with a poll like that, which really shook things up, you'd got a lot of men in Iowa and other places going out to vote because they thought Harris was about to win? I mean, we've sort of heard so far tonight, Elon Musk has said the cavalry have arrived, all the men are going out to vote. We've heard about frat houses organising in university campuses, organising around getting men out to vote.
Yeah, I do think that. I mean, if you look at the early voting, all the data seems to suggest that women were turning out more so than men. And that was the case in places like Pennsylvania and the other Rust Belt states. But actually, what may have happened is that on the day, and because of that, those sort of pushes in those last few days and hours, more men have turned out to vote than was expected. So I think it's the difficult thing with polling, because there's several things that can go wrong. One is you might pick the wrong people. Two, something might be wrong with your data. And three, you simply can't factor in the fact that people change their mind, and people who you didn't think were going to vote now have voted, and vice versa. So I wouldn't want to be a pollster.
Fair enough. Who would after this election? And what about some of the other sort of voter groups that we've talked about in this election? What's happened with the Hispanics, for example? What are we seeing so far in the data?
So here it's really interesting. So what the evidence suggests, and bearing in mind we've only got sort of slightly limited data so far, but there does seem to be a bit of a shift. So Trump does actually seem to be doing better among areas with lots of non-white populations, lots of Hispanic people, whereas Harris does appear to be doing a bit better among the white working class than Biden did 4 years ago. So we have got this strange sort of shift where Trump has actually managed to reach new groups a bit more effectively than he has in the past. And, given the sort of fine margins in this election, it could have been the sort of impact on those voters that has actually won it for him.
And that's amazing. That's despite the garbage comments. That's despite sort of lots of very prominent Latinos coming out saying, vote for Harris. That's still gone the other way. I mean, just tell us what you've seen in the data.
So I think there's some remarkable local stories when we jump into the maps of the local areas. There's a county in Florida, I'm going to say this wrong, Osceola County in Florida, where about a third of the people are of Puerto Rican origin. Now, throughout most of the 2010s, so 2008, 2012, 2016, it comfortably backed the Democrats by sort of, we're talking 70% to 30%. Trump appears to have won that county this time. So we're talking of swings that no one really would have foreseen, where you've got groups, who traditionally the Democrats, it wasn't even under question whether they would win there. Now they're struggling. So I think that there has been, if you sort of look at the local data on this, there are some really remarkable patterns.
Well, Tom, last time we didn't know the final result until the Saturday after the election. That's how long it took for all the states to come back. I'm not asking you to put money on this, but if you were a betting man, how soon do you think we'll have a final result?
I don't think it will take as long as it did last time. I think if you look at the way some of these swing states are going, yes, some of them could take a long time to finish, especially Nevada and Arizona. But remember, Harris's path to victory now is so narrow. She has to win Michigan, she has to win Pennsylvania, she has to win Wisconsin. If any one of those go to Trump, then it's essentially over. So I think we will probably know within the next few hours.
Well, Tom, thanks so much for talking to us.
Thanks for having me.
That's all from us for now, but you can follow every twist and turn of the crucial hours to come at thetimes.com. You can read everything for free today and tomorrow. There'll also be rolling coverage on Times Radio. A result might come at any minute, so do stay tuned in. We'll be back with more from America tomorrow here on The Story. The producers tonight were Taryn Siegel, Edward Drummond and Chris Wade. The executive producer was Fiona Leach. Sound design was by David Crackles and theme music was by Mal Lassetto. Thanks for listening. We're going to go to bed now, but we'll be back tomorrow.